Hi, everybody. Welcome back. We are here for another one of your questions about work. And we love the difficult questions here. And so we also love speaking with folks who work at companies in which we've invested. And Lavanya is up for both of those. So for those of you who are here for the first time, I'm Roy. I'm a startup investor in the future of work. We answer your questions about work. And today we're here with Lavanya Shukla, who was a machine learning engineer and then evolved into running growth and is now the VP of growth at Weights and Biases, which is a service that helps. Well, I'll let her describe what Weights and Biases does, actually, so that I don't botch it, despite being a big fan. And so, Lavanya, the question that we want to ask today, you've been on this mission to try to get lots and lots of people using the tools of machine intelligence, so every engineer and researcher can do this. But we're in a slow economy, and so it's a lot easier to imagine how to grow when everything's going great. You pour a bunch of money on things. I don't know. You shoot T-shirts out of cannons, or I don't even know what you do. And so the question today, and thank you for being here, is how do I grow my company when the economy is slow?
Thank you for having me, Roy. I'm super excited. So I'll maybe start with what Weights and Biases does, just for people who don't know about us. So we're a ML ops platform created by machine learning engineers for machine learning engineers. All three of our founders have a deep experience in ML going back decades. And essentially, the premise that the company was founded on was for each step of the software development cycle, there are big companies that are solving that problem. But for machine learning, because it's so new, there aren't enough tools. So we're trying to build the tools to make the lives of machine learning engineers easier, so they can focus on inventing the next large model, and they don't have to worry about reproducibility, debugging, all of that stuff.
Awesome. Okay. So then how you take this proposition where you are new, meaning the company's new, the area of ML ops is new, as you said, none of the big companies are focused on it. And then there's a slowdown. And so what do you do?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I don't have a marketing background. So when I got this growth role, I thought about everything from first principles and try to figure out what are my machine learning engineer friends doing, where are they hanging out, and how can we introduce the product to them in a way that makes sense to them in that context. But how we translate that to this economy, I actually genuinely believe that you don't need to build a big sales team. If you can build a product that is super useful for people and a product that people fall in love with, and also if you can build a community that people want to engage in and learn a lot from, your users actually become your sales team, and then you can grow exponentially without spending a lot of money. And how you do that practically is you don't build a traditional funnel, which is awareness to engagement. You actually build a flywheel, which adds an extra step of taking your engaged users and converting them into creators. And if you can give your engaged users the tools to build interesting things on top of your product publicly, then they'll be able to introduce your product to their communities in a way that's way more authentic than you ever could. And that you can do with marketing messaging or ads or anything like that, because these users are people that are trusted by those communities.
And so just to make sure that I follow, I think the implication of that is it doesn't matter whether you're in a slow economy or not, because the users are still creating and that you don't need as much capital in order to do it. So you're not looking for dollars to sponsor conferences and that kind of stuff. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. And if you think about it right now, because the economy is bad, it's harder for people, even really smart people, to get jobs. So they're more incentivized to create things publicly to improve their own portfolio. So you're
It may
totally
even
aligned
be
with this.
better now, is what you're saying, for
Yeah,
this
definitely.
role in terms of the shifting needs of talent. And so just to make sure that I understand, I mean, there is a software engineer's view that you hear sometimes, which I don't think is what you're saying, which is
Mhm.
all you need to do is build a great product and then don't worry about growth or marketing. It'll grow on its own. You're saying something slightly different from that. So what are you saying about how you intervene in order to make something grow?
Yeah, so and that brings me to the second point of this you don't need a big sales team and you need to create a flywheel of creators. You need to measure the ROI of your experiments, and you need to measure every step of your funnel like your life depends on it. And you need to it doesn't just happen, right? That you build a good product and some people will start creating useful things publicly. You actually need to think about which of your engaged users are going to become creators, and not just that, like who will be the creator of these useful public things, who will be the distributor, and then who will be the consumer, and like why would each of those people do it, right? And then start running experiments. And my controversial opinion here is like, if you're running experiments that last more than 2 weeks without changing anything, your startup is gonna die, because like we don't have enough time to run experiments that like last for months. And you can still keep running like the same experiment for a couple of months, but you do need to change something every 2 weeks. So be religious about turning those engaged users into creators and so on.
And so what, I mean, there are probably many people who would listen to something like this and think, I don't have a product where I know how to make my users create something in public. And if you told me, by the way, you're making a workbench of tools that an ML engineer can use, it's not obvious what the things would be that somebody would create in using those tools that would be public and make them evangelists, or creators and distributors in your language. So how did you think about, did the product need to change in order to accommodate this kind of mechanism for growth?
Yeah, so where you can, it's nice to have at least some public facing piece of the product, but I realize that's not always possible, which is where we come to the second piece of it. You either ideally it's both, but like you build a product that your users are really excited about and can build on top of, or you build a community of people where like your whole industry wants to hang out. And again, you don't want to build a community of just people who want to use your product. You want to build a bigger community. So our community is not about weights and biases. It's about machine learning engineers who want to make themselves better, right?
When we say
And
your
we would throw
community,
things
that means a Discord? What does a community mean
like,
in this context?
yeah, that's a great question. So we have a Discord. We also have a discourse forum. We run a lot of events because different people want to engage in different pieces. We also
Sure.
have a massive YouTube channel, right? So like we try to like get them all into our Discord, but like the community lives in different places.
Got it. Got it. Sorry, but I interrupted. And so you're saying you built a community that goes beyond what it is that you are, beyond talking about weights and biases and trying to
Yeah.
accommodate, everybody in the domain. Lots of folks might want to do that. What makes one of those community? I mean, you were an ML engineer. What's going to make you go to one community versus another?
And that's a great question, and the answer changes over time. But I think the first thing is like it has to be an authentic community. I think we're very lucky that everyone from our board to Lucas, who's our CEO, to like everyone is super aligned that we need to build a community, and we don't care in the short term if those people become users of our product. Because the great thing about having a community is like, unlike like emails that you're sending the users, if people are in your community, you get multiple chances over years to tell them about your product. And today's version of your product might not resonate with them, but like 2 years later you might learn something, and like that's where they're spending all their time, right? So they will come back and look at that messaging. So just to give you an example, like the first few community projects that we did were and at this point, like nobody knew about us, nobody thought we were not known for our community, and we just had a Slack, and I would invite a bunch of like people that people wanted to hear, machine learning engineers wanted to hear from, and do AMAs. And that was a reason to come to our community, and like something that was not happening in other places, access to people that are your heroes, right? Then we started doing paper reading groups. Everyone wants to learn about the latest machine learning innovation. They don't have time to read the paper. We do it for you, and we showcase weights and biases in the context of that. So, like, if you start doing these things over time, people will know that you're actually trying to add value to their lives.
I love that. I love that. I think that like there's this sense in which it is just a genuine way of trying to show somebody that you care about what they care about. And it all sounds so simple when you say it. I know that doing it in practice is really requires a lot of judgment and nuance. Maybe the last little question is, were there moments where you had a real struggle about whether to do something one way versus another in favor of the community or not, that you feel like show how you make decisions around these little the kind of, the elements of the funnel, if you will?
Yeah, so I never think that I know the answer to like for how to like run a community program or a growth program. My ideal is like experiment and optimize. Like try something in an MVP way, and like if it resonates with people, do more of it. If it doesn't, then don't. I'm trying to think of a specific example. like doing paper reading groups and spending like a couple of days of your ML engineer's time just to read through a paper and like explain it to the community is not the most efficient ROI thing you can think,
Yeah,
but
you're
like
like,
it does
somebody's like, I have some features to build. You're like, please read this paper,
exactly, exactly. But then it helps so much because like that's how your community knows that you actually care because you're not shoving down the product down their throat. You're actually adding value. So
I love it. I love it. Okay. Anything else you want to add before we wrap?
no, that's it. I mean, you can find our product at Weights and Biases, WNB.com. So if you're a machine learning engineer, please check us out.
WNB. I was wondering about, like, are we pronouncing that WanDB these days, or, but you're saying WNB.com, right?
Yeah. So my favorite way is wand B because it's like a wand with bees.
WanDB. I love it. There you go. So we've got it up here. WanDB.com. Don't mess around and get Wands A or C, because you will not end up in Harry Potter land. All right, Lavanya, thank you so much for doing this. And, for those of you who are here with us for the first time, the reason we call this is not advice, is we're not telling you exactly what you should do in your setting. Lavanya's sharing what's worked for her. You have to decide for yourself. Otherwise, all the advice is self-motivated. So this is just putting that value out into the community. And Lavanya, I'm really grateful. Would love to have you back and to be continued.
Thank you so much for having me.